Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Just Talking About Sports. I'm Ethan.
I'm Drew.
And Drew, what are we doing today?
Just talking about sports, baby. We're back.
We're back again. One week later, as we're continuing our fantasy playoff, basically help for the fantasy people who are struggling to make their decisions on their fantasy leagues when these are the most important 3 weeks of their entire fantasy careers for this year. So we're trying to give our help for those who need the help, and we'll give a little bit more insight for those who need it. So basically, we did all right last week, to say the very least. So that's just a summary. But Drew, basically, how did we do last week?
I mean, we did okay. The quarterbacks overall, all three of them put up average games. They averaged around 17 points apiece. They were all very startable options, but I think we did all right. Ethan, how did we do on the running backs?
The running backs, for our starters, we got unlucky because Gaskin decided to get put on COVID reserve literally the day we posted the video, probably hours after we posted it. So it just came as an unfortunate that gave away our starters. So obviously you couldn't start Gaskin unless you really, really listened to us, which that probably would not have been a smart idea. And then we bid it with Sanders. We said he was a sit-em. He dropped 30 on us, basically proving us wrong. So shoot with Sanders. And then McKissick was another solid option. Did average, but for that, I'll let you take these wide receivers for our last little bit of our type of week last week.
All right, the wide receivers. Tyler Lockett, he got looks, but he couldn't find the end zone like all other Seahawks wide receivers. He did okay. Ridley, Julio Jones sat out, which we could not foresee. So, if we would have known that, we would have told you to start him instead of sit him. He went off. And Corey Davis, he had kind of a dud. Tannehill wasn't really looking his way, and he had a fumble. So the wide receivers weren't great. But that's okay because we are not perfect, and we are back again to try to help you out and hopefully not screw you over this week.
Redeem ourselves. We need a bounce back week, and especially with what happens when we just got screwed over so much. We'll put like asterisks next to Gaskin and Ridley at this point because that's unfair. We shouldn't have. But for the rest of them, you can't get them all right every single time, and we just got a little bit more unluckier than not with our picks. But who it is, it's a whole new week. And for those fantasy players who are still alive, congrats, you made it to another week. Or those who are on a bye week, congrats, you didn't have to play last week. So now everyone has to play this week in most leagues. So this is the most important league for everybody continuing now. And we'll just start off with our clear starters for this week. And those will be starting off with our quarterback for this week in Ryan Tannehill from Tennessee against Detroit. I'll let you start off with this one, Drew.
All right. We think our starter for this week is Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill has been on fire the whole season. He's been a top 10 option for you and me, myself. Ryan Tannehill carried me to a championship last year around this time. So I'm a big believer in Ryan Tannehill. And he did pretty well last week. He threw for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns, even with Derrick Henry having a big day. Derrick Henry had 215 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. But this is a very friendly matchup for Ryan Tannehill and the Titans passing offense. I mean, the Lions gave up the 6th most passing yards, and the Packers, my boy, Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest to ever do it, MVP frontrunner for this year, 290 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and he had a rushing touchdown against the Lions. He feasted, so we see no reason why Ryan Tannehill cannot as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's solely going to rely on if Derrick Henry gets the touchdowns. So I feel like Tannehill this time is going to come in around after what Derrick Henry just did to the Jaguars. I feel like Detroit's going to literally just put 7 guys right at the line, and that's going to allow for Tannehill to take advantage of it. And that's when Tannehill performs best, is when all the defense cares about is Derrick Henry and they forget about Tannehill, and that's when they make him pay for it. And that's why I feel like Detroit's going to scheme for Derrick Henry and not Tannehill, and that's going to lead to another big day for Tannehill. And look out for A.J. Brown and Corey Davis owners too. I think Corey Davis will have a redemption game this week, and I feel like A.J. Brown will find a way to get into the end zone this week too. So Ryan Tannehill is a great clear starter for this week, and Rodgers on the MVP vote. We still got 3 more weeks to see how it is, Mr. Packers fan, but we'll see what they do. But Tannehill is definitely a clear starter. So now we'll move on to our running back option for this week as our clear starter. And this one is a bit of a new guy that kind of took a slump down in and then now he's on a rise, an exponential rise over the last 2 weeks. And this guy's name is Cam Akers, who I'll quickly go through it real quick. Cam Akers, he plays for the Rams, and he started off as their number one option at the start of the year, and then ended up having basically a slump, and then ended up getting injured and pretty much lost his job to Darrell Henderson. Well, now that he's back, he's slowly but surely eaten almost all of the touches, and he got all the way up to 29 touches for 100 and oh boy, how many? 172 or 1 yard.
171 yards.
171 yards. He didn't score a touchdown, but 171 yards against the Patriots defense, along with 2 catches and 23 yards. Akers was on fire. There was nothing stopping Akers. That does help with the Rams' offensive line figuring out how to really just destroy that Patriots front. But Cam Akers took advantage of it, and he was able to run all over this Patriots team. And guess what he gets granted with this week? The Jets. Jets, Jets. The worst team that is still, we are now 13 weeks through, I believe, the season, or 14 weeks of the season. And guess what? They still have not won a game. And I don't think it's going to happen this week either. So I think Cam Akers is going to feast.
Yeah, you know what Jets stands for, Ethan? Jets. Just end the season.
There you go.
And Cam Akers has an opportunity to absolutely explode. Now, the Rams running back situation all year, it's been kind of a hodgepodge, who's going to start, who's not. It's been very much by committee with Akers, Henderson, and Malcolm Brown. But Cam Akers' touches they have been absolutely increasing the last 3 weeks. He had 9 against San Francisco, 22 against Arizona, and 31 against New England. And he looked fantastic against the Patriots defense. Like watching Thursday Night Football, like you marvel, Cam Akers would get 8-9 yards a carry. Seemed like almost every time he touched the football. And that led to over 20 points. And that's even without a touchdown. And especially in a matchup like the Jets, where running backs absolutely feast, we think that Cam Akers has a chance to continue his meteoric rise and go off.
If you were lucky enough to pick him up at the waivers, please do us a favor and put him in your lineup, because this is the most prime matchup anybody could have asked for. So that ends our Cam Akers talk, and we're now moving on to the wide receiver, who is Terry McLaurin from Washington in Seattle. I'll let you start off with this one.
All right, Terry McLaurin of the Washington football team. He's had a rough go of it the past 2 weeks. He's only had 2 catches, 3.4 points, and 4.4 points in his last 2 weeks. That's not the Terry McLaurin that we're used to seeing. Terry McLaurin is a bona fide wide receiver 1. We think that he is a superstar, and especially in a matchup against Seattle, we think he will return to form. And it's not like he hasn't been producing like this at the beginning of the season. Like, in fact, weeks 6 through 12, he had 10-plus fantasy points every single week. And in every single game, he has had 6 or more targets. So it's not like they're not looking his way. I think the targets are going to continue, and this is definitely going to be a great bounce back week for Terry McLaurin. I know I'm banking on it.
Yes. I mean, anybody who's scared about it, you should not be scared at all. I mean, yes, Alex Smith is now questionable for this game after he sprained. He did not break anything in his leg. He sprained something in his calf, apparently, according to reports. So he is still questionable for this game. No matter who it is, though, at quarterback, Dwayne Haskins or Alex Smith, Terry McLaurin has actually been able to produce, no matter who it was. I mean, he's had 3 different quarterbacks all season long, and he's still been able to put up these numbers. At one point, he was like 3rd in the entire league in receiving yards. He's had these 2 duds. That's what's led him to fall down in the race for who could have the most receiving yards. But I feel like he'll have a bounce back week, especially when you're versing the worst pass defense in the league. You get Blitz Boy on the Seahawks, who's just
Wait, Ethan, it's not the Jets?
the Seahawks. Yes. The Seahawks are actually worse than the Jets. They've given up 3,800 yards.
That's insane.
They've given up most, like, yards wise. It's just sad.
Stop the madness.
They're on pace to just set records for the worst passing defense and secondary. So any team that goes up against them usually has a great game, and I feel like no matter who's at quarterback, this Washington football team with Terry McLaurin will find a way to have another great game and get 10 or maybe even get 10 targets. So we'll just have to see, and that'll probably take us to that finishes our clear starters. And now we'll be moving on to our sits for the week. And I'll start off with this guy. So
you want to? You
I,
really want to?
and there's a reason why. So people
Okay,
who are
okay.
reading this, they're reading this. Who the heck are the Crusaders? Well, let me show you real quick. This Crusaders team just happens to be Tua Tagovailoa's high school jersey. All right, Tua Tagovailoa. For those who don't know, he plays for the Dolphins. Yes, he's a lefty, the only lefty in the league, and he just arguably had a better game than Patrick Mahomes.
Arguably.
I made sure to say arguably because Tua threw for 316 yards, 2 touchdowns, and unfortunately his first interception of the year against
had to come eventually
against the Chiefs. Yeah. But for this week, even as a Dolphins fan, I'm kind of worried because they're up against the big bad Patriots. And if anybody who doesn't know, the Patriots are very, very good against rookie quarterbacks. Belichick, whatever he has in his head or whatever he does, he's just able to scheme it where rookie quarterbacks have a lot rougher time. I mean, he does great disguises on defense, and he forces those rookie quarterbacks into bad situations. He's 20-5 against rookie quarterbacks, with his most recent game being Justin Herbert. And let's just say 2 weeks prior, the Chargers didn't even score. So they put up a shutout, and they not only shut out, they lost 45-0. The Chargers did against the Patriots. So to say the least, I'm a little bit worried. Yes, Tua actually scored 31 points in fantasy, which is like surprising for people who are looking for maybe another great quarterback that they need, like for maybe if their quarterback goes down sometimes. But I feel like for now, Tua, it should stay on your bench. It's not looking good because of the defense. It's solely because of the matchup. He's been playing well, but it's solely because of the matchup.
Yeah, no, I think I'd have to agree with you there. I mean, Tua Tagovailoa, he has been playing well, but the New England Patriots, for quarterbacks, they make their lives nightmarish. Like, you look at what happened last Thursday with the Rams. Jared Goff did not play well. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, who are normally very dependent, did not eat at all. And we think that the trend is going to continue with Tua, although we do think he's very talented. I mean, he's a great option for the rest of the playoffs. I think you should just leave him on your bench for this week.
Mm-hmm. As he's got a few more great matchups towards the end of the season, so we'll have to see for that. But one more thing I wanted to add before we move on to the next one is about Tua and the fact that another big reason why he's not maybe going to have a time or he's going to struggle a little bit more is the fact that he's missing his top 8 offensive performers. What I mean by this is that the Dolphins have lost pretty much everyone that has, like, in the prior to the season, that has helped them score any type of yards. Like the most people who've brought like offensive plus points and yardage for this team are all out. They're missing all of them. So at the moment, because of COVID, because of injuries, because of all reasons that they have, they're just struggling to stay healthy this season. And that's just leaving Tua with more and more, or basically less and less options to look for. And that means he could be thrown into more sticky situations with against a very, very great Belichick defense.
I mean, I know it seems wild, but Ethan, just look at the graphic. Look at the graphic over here. I didn't believe it either, but Ethan, you could probably list all the options that are out. Oh, yeah. I know I sure can't, but it's kind of nuts to believe. And we don't see Tua having a very good game.
Yep, and that brings us to our running back sit-em. Great way to segue into it, as we'll be talking about the NFC least. Oh, an NFC least team, a second one. Although this time it's a sit-em, and it's Ezekiel Elliott on Dallas as our running back option.
No, Ezekiel Elliott, what the heck happened to you, man? Like, you were the consensus 3rd overall pick. Like, I even considered drafting you 2nd overall above Saquon Barkley, which actually wouldn't have been a bad pick because he's actually playing. But what is going on? Like, since Dak has been out, I mean, you were a set it and forget it running back 1. Now you're a borderline running back 2, and you're splitting touches with your backup. I mean, in the game against the Bengals, I mean, Elliott only had 14 touches, but Pollard had 13. It was very 50-50. And for a guy who a lot of people drafted in the 1st round is very, very concerning. And he's been on a downward trend. And we think that is going to continue in this game against the 49ers, which, although banged up, have a very, very sturdy run defense.
Yeah, I mean, when Ezekiel Elliott has been, everyone should pick him 4th overall. And then he goes and he puts up games like last week where he had 12 touches for 48 yards against a garbage Bengals defense. I mean, come on. What else can you ask for in this guy? I mean, he's just struggling. He can't get it going. That just shows you that Dallas is, whatever it is with Dak, whatever spirit and leadership that Dak brought, it's pretty much proves that Zeke is nothing without him. And until he comes back, Zeke's just going to be a guy that you should be scared about starting every single week, especially this week against a better 49ers defense.
Yeah, we don't know what's happened to the Cowboys. They're playing terribly. But watching Skip Bayless complain about them is very entertaining week after week. So that's what I look forward to. But in terms of Ezekiel Elliott in fantasy, keep him on your bench. Stay away from him.
Do not start him this week. He is no longer feasting. he is no longer eating them up anymore. So now with that, we'll move on to our wide receiver option for a sit-em. And he had issues with COVID, and his name's DJ Moore. And this week he's got the Green Bay Packers. So I'll let you start off with this one. Just I know you wanna talk about your Packers.
I love talking about my Packers, and even though our defense isn't great, who is great? Jair Alexander. And he figures to match up against Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore all game, and especially with DJ Moore coming back from the aforementioned COVID, we think he's going to be a little bit rusty. No, he hasn't practiced with the team. He's been isolated. And I mean, we think he's just not going to do well.
I mean, he's already struggled to get targets the entire season after Robbie Anderson came out of nowhere and ended up like stealing almost all of the like supposed touches and receptions and targets that DJ Moore was supposed to get. And that's why people drafted him so high and Anderson so low. But Anderson has taken that role away from him. And especially with him coming back from the COVID list, he's pretty much having to redeem himself and have to build it. So he's not only now having to try and steal targets away from Robbie Anderson, he's also trying to steal him away from Curtis Samuel, who's also been playing pretty well for this Panthers team. So now it's going to be interesting to see, especially with a cornerback like Jair Alexander, who's one of the better corners in the league. I will not say best because, in my opinion, there's somebody else, and you know who because you're smiling. But I feel like that it's a rougher matchup for DJ Moore and owners who are trying to finally take him off the bench now he's back from the COVID. I'm going to say, Holt, don't do it. Don't waste your time. Keep him on your bench. There's plenty more options to be looking after. And plenty more options. I mean, we're going to be moving. Another great way to segue into our sleepers category, our streamers for players who are kind of under the radar, who are looking that basically the uneducated fantasy owners might look over or look past and forget about. And these players might be your championship winners or guys who bring you into the championship, especially in the playoffs. These guys could be your league winners or the sleepers for your league winners. So we'll start off with the quarterback, which is the most bold take we've probably had so far in our pick'ems, and that is the legend himself, Mitchell Trubisky. I couldn't even say it with a straight face. I'm sorry. Mitchell Trubisky against Minnesota as a sleeper pick. Yes, we are not lying. Despite me laughing, we're being honest. So I'll probably continue with this one. Mitchell Trubisky actually played better than Deshaun Watson. What? Wait a minute, huh? Yes, Deshaun Watson. When they played against each other, Watson had a rough time, only put up 7 points against the Bears defense, where Mitchell Trubisky was able to put up 24 or basically 25 points in fantasy with 267 yards and 3 touchdowns. And guess what? 0 interceptions. What? Mitchell Trubisky playing well? These Bears fans must be very, very happy. I mean, and with him going up against a Minnesota defense that is 7th worst passing in the entire league, he might be able to have another great game. And in a game that he's trying to redeem himself and prove that he's basically playing for his job at this point. So he's going to be very desperate. He's going to be trying to prove that he still can be a starting quarterback somewhere, because obviously I know these Bear fans are done with him. So we'll see what Trubisky has in store, but I think he could be a very sleeper, very under the radar option for this week.
Oh man, Mitch Trubisky. I mean, I've been doing through that segment talking about Mitch Trubisky, what I've been doing the whole season to Mitch Trubisky and the Bears in general. I've just been laughing at him. And the fact that Mitch Trubisky played well against the Texans, and just to think, like last week, we were talking about what the heck is going wrong with the Bears, where Ethan and Luca discussed that maybe they should fire everybody, clean house. Link to that is in the description. You should go check it out. But it's crazy to think about it that like Mitch Trubisky actually played pretty well. And like it's funny to admit, but we seriously think that he can do very well against a Vikings defense that is rather porous and rather young in the secondary. You know, Mitch Trubisky absolutely peppered Allen Robinson with targets, and when you get the ball into that guy's hands, good things happen. So if you're looking for a quarterback to start, go with Mitch Trubisky. He'll do you well this week.
Yeah, especially with this week. I mean, there's a little bit tougher matchups across the league with teams that are basically the better teams are versing the better teams and the worst teams are versing the worst teams. So it's going to be a lot harder to find some matchups. And that's why if you're really desperate and if your quarterback is injured or on COVID, what else do you got to do but turn to Mitchell Trubisky? I do not believe I'm saying those words. I am baffled. I am saying those words. But hey, it's week 15 and also it's 2020. So you never know what's going to happen.
Isn't that just the most 2020 thing ever, though? Like Mitch Trubisky gets benched for Nick Foles, comes back, plays well against the Texans, and then some yahoos like us are telling you to start him in fantasy. Who would have thunk it?
Well, what?
Who would have thunk it?
Just baffling. But with that, we'll move on to our running back option for a sleeper. And this guy is a rookie that has been playing a little bit better in an offense that has struggled in recent weeks, but we feel like he's going to have a little bit better week this week. And that is J.K. Dobbins against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'll let you take this one.
All right. J.K. Dobbins has been playing really well as of late. Mark Ingram went down with COVID. So J.K. Dobbins has really stepped into that running back one role. And we thought at the beginning of the season, when is J.K. Dobbins going to take over and emerge as the true running back one for the Ravens? Well, we think that time is now. And his performance in the last 2 weeks has definitely shown that he's able to handle that role. He had 13 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown against Cleveland last week. And he had 11 carries for 71 yards and a touchdown against the Cowboys 2 weeks ago. And especially they're playing the Jaguars. So we think that J.K. Dobbins as the lead back, look at what it was Derrick Henry. It was open season for King Henry against the Jags. 36.2 PPR points. He was the best running back in fantasy against Jacksonville. And J.K. Dobbins, we think that he is going to feast given the expanded workload and just with the great matchup.
I mean, for J.K. Dobbins to be successful in an offense where Lamar Jackson, they basically running back, not quarterback guy on the Baltimore offense, is having success. I think it's going to be great for him, and it's going to help take the load off of Lamar Jackson, who had some stomach issues, as some may think, in their most recent games. So, or it was pretty much one of the best games that we've seen all season. So props to them for having a 45-42 point game.
47-42. You can't forget about that.
The
safety at the end.
The wacky safety at the end. Sorry about that.
I'm disappointed in you.
Oh,
you had to mention Lamar Jackson going in for poops.
I did have to mention.
You had to mention it.
But just because
gone without it, man.
Such a game that it was, I had to. But going back to that's off topic. Going back to J.K. Dobbins, J.K. Dobbins is going to have a better game this week because against a Jacksonville team that's just horrendous against the run. As you said, like they've given out the third most rushing yards against opposing offenses this year. It's pretty sad, and they're already a sad team. And I feel like Baltimore is just absolutely going to clobber them in this game. And if they're going to clobber them, J.K. Dobbins is going to be involved in that clobbering. So I feel like he should be a great sleeper pick for somebody that you might want to start over Ezekiel Elliott this week. So we'll have to see but with that brings us to our final player that we're going to be reviewing in our sleeper category and for the episode. It's going to be T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. I'm not a Colts fan, but I'm allowed to do that. T.Y., I'll continue with Ty. Ty has started off the year. There you go. Thank you. Ty has done all right so far this season. He struggled to really get it going on offense. He didn't really have chemistry with Phillip Rivers. He never really put up good games until he hit Houston, and he basically just made him his B word because we can't swear. He went off for an unbelievable. I think he had at least eight catches for 100-something yards and a touchdown against them. I'll quickly confirm that it was just a massacre against them 2 weeks prior. He as one of our Colts fans that we know Woods, he's basically said T.Y. Hilton owns the Texans. So especially after the game, that kind of proves it because he just went off. And here we go. I finally have the stats up. Eight catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. Just unbelievable stats for a guy who had not been really doing much all season long. So now basically that was only 2 weeks ago. So guess what? They get to come back and verse the same team that they just did, especially the same team that just had Allen Robinson put up 9 catches for 123 yards and a touchdown against them. This Houston team is awful on the secondary, and I feel like T.Y. Hilton is going to own them 1 week more.
The thing about T.Y. Hilton is it 2014 again? Is Andrew Luck back under center? Because although T.Y. Hilton has struggled all year, he's really gotten it going. And his last game against Houston, that was not a 1 week thing, because the next week against Vegas, he came back, 5 catches, 7 targets for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 25 fantasy points in PPR or more over the past 2 weeks. And T.Y. Hilton, quite frankly, has his mojo back, has his swagger back. So we think it's T.Y. Hilton season going forward. I think we can finally trust him again as the wide receiver 1 in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's baffling to say too, because you thought, all right, we're going to draft him high because he's the only real wide receiver in that Indiana offense. And he was just a no-show for the first almost like 11, 12 weeks. And then magically he said, forgot about me. And he's now back and he's just tearing out the league. And he could be pretty much the fantasy, pretty much the way that he's playing. If he continues this, he could pretty much be the best sleeper league winner for any player who was able to snag him before these last 2 weeks and before his two humongous performances that he had or has had so far. So that with T.Y. Hilton going off is going to be our last sleeper and our last player for our week 15 fantasy basically options or opinions or stardom situms and sleepers that we have for this week. We need to improve on this week after last week's blow. So we're sorry for people who really directly listen to us, but
I think we're going to bounce back in a big way this week. And I think these picks will win you some games.
Yes. So we'll think that now it's even more important. And for those players who are still alive, now we think we said last week that screw that. Everyone forget about that week. This week is real business. We're going to help you guys out. We're going to prove that we are fantasy great people this week, or we know what we're talking about, hopefully. So basically really listen to us. If you don't want to listen to us, you don't have to. We're just trying to give advice. But with that, that's going to end our episode of our obviously week 15 picks. So I hope everyone has enjoyed. Thank you, Drew, for coming on again. And of course. Other than that, until next time, we'll just be sitting here just talking about sports.